Without further ado, we're going to move on to our executive panel, and I think it's going to be outstanding. And we have one of our really good friends and colleagues here today to moderate and lead the panel, and that is Tracy Hernandez of BizFed. Tracy is the founding CEO of the Los Angeles County Business Federation, widely known as BizFed. BizFed unites 235 organizations representing 420,000 companies, employing 5 million people in Southern California, advocating for policies and projects at all levels of government that spur job creation and cultivate a healthy economy. Tracy also founded the 501c3 BizFed Institute and BizFed PAC, the only business political action committee focused on local elections in all 88 cities in Los Angeles County. I was endorsed by them once, or twice actually, when I ran for office. I appreciate that. During her 20-year media career, Tracy published and owned award-winning newspapers and digital news platforms, and was the first female publisher of our Los Angeles Daily News here in the San Fernando Valley. She serves on many nonprofit boards, including on our board. We're very proud to have her on our board here at the Valley Economic Alliance. Please welcome our great friend, Tracy Hernandez.
It is good to be among friends. I have to say, when I first came to Los Angeles 20 years ago, I can't believe it, to run the LA Daily News, and I landed right here in the Valley, my very first board I went on was the Valley Economic Alliance. So VEA is right here in my heart, like holds strong and still, and I'm committed to this day to all the good work that you do to lift people up and our businesses and our communities to thrive here in the Valley. Today, I'm honored because our panel is going to take on an interesting topic. Doing business in SoCal, and then this is the fun part, the challenges and the opportunities. There are many of both, and we have an experts panel that has come today to shed light on both aspects of that, so that together we can lift all, the rising tide lifts all boats. So that's what we're going to do here together. Sonia and Fred really put together this diverse panel that you're going to enjoy. We're going to have a chance to dialogue with one another, and then they'll be around afterwards for you guys to say hi individually. So it's my honor. I'm going to start introducing and calling up the panelists so you know who is here. I'm going to start right with my friend who is sitting here, Marty Adams. Marty Adams is the General Manager and Chief Engineer for the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Everyone pay their DWP bill? And if you haven't, there's good help too, because DWP has a lot of great programs to help everyone get that done. But let me tell you about Marty. Did you hear that he's not only the General Manager, but he's the Chief Engineer? I think we're blessed here in Los Angeles to have our leader carry those credentials. So Marty leads the organization. They're growing. They've got 11,000 employees at DWP, delivering, of course, water and power to 4 million Angelenos. Marty comes to us with 38 years of experience at DWP, just getting his feet wet. And when he started out, he started as an entry-level engineer. He's the chair of the San Fernando Community Health Center Board of Directors, and he's deeply committed to providing compassionate health care to all community members. He and his family live right here in Burbank, where he served for 9 years on their city's Water and Power Board. Thank you, Marty. You were extra efficient to get to your seat and get situated. All right, next we're going to switch over to this table. I'm going to call my other friend, Maricela Caraballo de Ruggiero. We've been friends for like a decade now, and someday I'm going to figure out how to actually pronounce her last name. She's awesome. Director of Trade and Development at the Port of Los Angeles. Maricela, come on up. She oversees the Port of LA's Trade Development Division. So she's ensuring that the port fulfills its mission to conduct U.S. business with overseas trade opportunities. I know a lot of us are interested in import-export with our own companies. She has more than 2 decades of experience in public policy development, issues management, and also legislative advocacy. She oversees the function of intergovernmental relations with foreign governments and also helps us advance the port's influence on expanding our trade markets. She's the point person also for the international diplomatic community, and she serves on a couple of boards, the U.S.-Mexico Chamber of Commerce, the California Regional Chapter, and Loyola Marymount University International Business Education Council, and my very favorite, BizFed. So I know she really wanted to start with that as the top, but I closed with it. All right, next up, let's call up Bill Foster. Bill is the Director of Contracts for the Defense Contract Management Agency, DCMA, and our co-host today. Bill, come on up. So Bill provides administration services to more than 900 different contractors across SoCal, spanning 18,000 contracts, valued at $192 billion. Bill is someone you want to say hi to, exchange cards. His responsibilities include the career development and training of more than 100 military and civilian contracting professionals, and his team supports 19 major defense programs. He previously led contract administration for large rocket engine development and served 26 years in the U.S. Air Force. Welcome, Bill. Just when you thought that was a powerhouse, those three, we got two more to go. So let me call on Rashmi Menon. Rashmi, right here sitting at lunch, and we color coordinated our outfits. Come on up to the board, or to the podium. Rashmi leads a team that delivers critical infrastructure projects in energy, aviation, manufacturing, federal, construction, environmental, and technology sectors. I would imagine most of you tap into one of those sectors or the other. So we tapped into her so that we could get the expertise. And she serves in leadership roles for the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, LAX Coastal Chamber, and the Pasadena Chamber. She's a committed member of the Southern California Association of Governments, Women's Transportation Seminar, and Conference of Minority Transportation Officials. Rashmi, welcome. All right, last but not least, we have a colonel in the house. Not every day I get to share the podium with the colonel, David Sutter from the United States Air Force. He's the commander of Southern California Contract Management Office, the Western Region of Defense Contract Management Agency. Colonel Sutter, come on up. My sister actually got on The Price is Right one time. Do you know that show? And she went down to CBS Studios, and you know the whole you get called, come on up. I had a flashback for a minute. I was like running Price is Right, like calling you guys as excited members from the audience to come on up. But anyway, let me tell you about Colonel Sutter. He serves as the commander of Southern California Contract Management Office right here in Los Angeles. It's like a well-kept secret. It is a behemoth that we have here in the United States Air Force, the Western Region of Defense Contract Management, and it's right in Carson. He's responsible for all contract administration services, supporting 14,000 contracts in Southern California, and he ranges all the way from Santa Barbara to the southern border, right, in San Diego. Includes the LA Basin and San Diego. He leads a staff of 638 military and civilian personnel with oversight of $191 billion in total contract value. $191 billion in contracting going on down the street under Colonel Sutter. It is amazing that's an opportunity that we have to get into. Welcome. All right, we're going to spend a few minutes. What I'd like to do is I'll ask a question, I'll ask a couple of you to respond, and then I'll tell the other ones if it's really burning in your heart and mind and soul, and you feel like you got to jump in. I didn't call on you, please do. But otherwise, if I ask a couple at a time, we can get more questions in. Is that all right? Okay. All right. Let's start with Rashmi and Marty. You guys ready? Marty and Rashmi. Here we go. You each demonstrate exemplary leadership in your respective realm of activity and have far-reaching influence over shaping our entire region. Let's start by gaining some insight into your particular approaches to leading your organization through today's economic landscape. So we're past COVID, you navigated COVID, and now we're on the other side. But specifically, what is your vision for your organization, and how do you see it contributing to our regional development? Rashmi, you want to jump in?
So let me start by saying thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here at this summit with this esteemed panel. I really appreciate the opportunity and the conversations. I would probably start by sharing my viewpoint on leadership and how I'd like to approach leadership in our office. And we have 6 offices up and down the state in California. And I will say what I'm most proud about the fact that is our leadership in our teams are inclusive. We hire diverse set of people across the engineering, construction, environmental services, scientists, architects, up and down the state, and all generations of workforce in our organization. Many new. We just had a class of interns who started a couple of weeks back, and that's one thing I would be very proud of. Personally, I value an open office environment. I love listening to people, but importantly, being open and transparent and authentic in the feedback. And I think that's so important when you look at development of our people and what they can do for our customers in the region. So our vision for our organization is based around improving the quality of life in the communities we live and work in. And that's at the core of what we do for our customers in the region. Whether we are working with LAX as an airport or Burbank, we are on the Burbank Airport project, we are working with MWD or LADWP or other state and federal agencies who are in California. And each and every time we are working with those customers, we are collaborating with them to create high-paying jobs in the community. And that's important to us because if you look at all the work that's going to happen in the state of California in infrastructure, it is really going to be a driver for economy here. And the last thing I would add is everything we do, it's so important to give back to our communities. We do a very good job in our teams to have a culture and a spirit of giving back. Last year, my teams in California gave back $250,000 to different organizations, whether it be through United Ways in LA and Orange County, the organization to abolish slavery and human trafficking, Big John Cares, and other organizations who are supporting the unhoused population in California. I'm very proud about that. But each and everything we do is coming back to improving how we connect with people in the community.
So at the Department of Water and Power, it's interesting times. We're part of the city family and part of city government, and one of the things that's been a challenge for us is really developing ourselves into, in a big city is difficult compared to a small city, but developing the sense that we are part of the city and here to help, and someone that people can trust and come to us for assistance in their projects, including in your existing businesses, things that we can do to help you become more efficient and save money on your water and power bills and become a better partner. I know government's difficult right now because trust in government is at an all-time low, and I represent the water and power of government. And our mission really, and we just finished a strategic plan to get toward this, is really to become a more trusted member of the community and the community that we serve. And it's both people that are customers of water and power, people that are business customers, people that need our services to develop or grow or construct their businesses, and really to really step up in that role and to find a niche that we have been kind of elusive in the past. And so we're really working hard to try to gain customers' trust of every kind of customer and really work closely to fill the needs of each and every person who does business or lives in Los Angeles. That said, it's important for us that as we move forward, we look at what we're charged with in terms of greening up the city, greening our power infrastructure, looking at more renewable and sustainable water resources, and so for us, innovation is a key. Being a leader and setting an example in the industry is a key. But as a company, we want to see ourselves go in that direction. There's no doubt that the most fundamental things we do is deliver water and power. And we're going to continue to do that without question, but we're trying to change how we do that. And so we have a huge emphasis in workforce development, how we can affect LA as a whole. We are a big employer, 11,000 people. We are constantly in churn. Every month we're bringing on, right now, 50 to 75 new employees. And we're going to have to increase that number because we see retirements, coming in all the time. And so, we realize that we're an economic factor. We're also a jobs generator in the city. We look at our contracting and how we contract, and we're contracting about $2 billion plus, locally building locally every year, and we're looking at how we can actually turn that into contracts for local businesses, because a very big portion of that contracting goes to people who are not local in LA or not local in LA County, or maybe not even housed in California. And so we're looking at, when we do our job of delivering water and power, how we can change it, how we can make sure that we are a resource for employment in the city, how we dive deeper into communities that really could use good middle class jobs and become an employer of choice. And at the same time, when we're contracting, whether it's contracting for services or for materials, how we can really leverage those contracts in the communities that make up all of Los Angeles, and try to keep as much of that money at home as possible. If we're spending $2 billion a year, if we kept half of it here in Los Angeles, that would be a huge economic driver for businesses, both big and small. And so we're working very hard to change that dynamic that we have right now, to really try to keep as much money and expenditures that we have, because it's all your money as ratepayers, how we keep that money home and keep it regenerating the economy in Los Angeles.
Great, Marty, thank you. In fact, just following up on what you were talking about is on the contracting and ensuring more of the business stays here local. You have actually some goals, don't you, on percentage of procurement you want to achieve with local, minority, women-owned businesses?
Yes, and we looked at I'll tell you, one of the things we did, in all of our contracts we have, like MeBe participation, we have not done a great job of tracking it and enforcing it, and that is changing right now to make sure that if people get listed on a contract to do business, they're going to be doing business with us. But that said, we're also doing a tremendous amount of outreach. We have a small business academy, try to get more businesses ready and registered. We're trying to kind of complete the whole circle, because we've taught a lot of people how to do business, but then we don't really help them when it comes time to bidding. And so we want to complete the full circle, but there's a very small portion of contracts actually end up in the hands of small businesses or minority or women-owned businesses in Los Angeles, for DWP, and we want to dramatically increase that, and a lot of this by outreach, by making connections. Some of our contracts are giant, so people go out of business doing business with us because you can't wait to get paid, or they're too big to bid on, you can't afford the insurance and all the other bonding. So we're looking at breaking those contracts up so more people can participate, and that'll be a huge change right there.
Excellent. All right, Bill and Colonel Sutter, get in the queue. I'm going to you next. So right here locally, according to the Cal Lutheran University Center for Economic Research and Forecasting, our very own San Fernando Valley as a region has for many years outpaced the city, the state, the nation in economic growth, and is a manufacturing hub that really helps the nation remain competitive. I don't know that everyone really hones in on that, on how strong the Valley is. And the Alliance's interactions with federal agencies like Defense Contract Management Agency position Valley businesses right here to thrive on a national scale. So here's the question. What opportunities does your agency offer local companies, and what benefits does your agency offer existing contractors as well? Colonel Sutton?
So I'm going to say, start off by kind of keying in. As you gave the introduction, you kind of highlighted the $191 billion. And I'll say that that's not so much a reflection of our agency, or more broadly speaking, the DoD. It's really a reflection of you all, within the businesses within the San Fernando Valley, as well as the greater LA and San Diego areas. I'll say, so I came here, this is my first time to LA, to Southern California, throughout my career. I got here last summer, and I was surprised to learn that this area has one of the highest densities of DoD contracts. Okay, there we go. Of DoD contracts anywhere in the U.S. It's amazing the amount of economic activity here rivals some states or regions across the U.S. So, pat yourselves on the back, and as you said, it's really amazing the businesses here. I would attribute that in large part, and this is based on some of the other places I've seen and been in my career. It's a testament also to the education institutions, because at the core of every business, and this is something that I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure, at the core of every business is quality people, and in our line of business, having skilled workers, having folks that know what they're doing is invaluable. That's what makes the business. So you've got a tremendous opportunity here with the existing economic activity, some of the larger contractors that smaller businesses can partner with, that collaboration, but then also the ability to grow the workforce based on partnerships with the LA area. From a DoD perspective, I'll say we're in. I apologize. Okay. We're in an amazing time right now. I remember 10 years ago or so, I was sitting in a forum, and it was forward-looking, more of a strategic, hey, what's coming down the road? And they had brought in an economist that was fairly well-respected, and he said, at this moment in time, we're this is the best it's going to get from a DoD budget perspective. And I think the 2010 timeframe, DoD budget was sitting around $600 billion or so, and the forecast was it's only going down from there. And it did in the short term. We had the austerity measures, and so in kind of that early 2010 to 2014, the budget did dip, but it's been on the rise, and enter in the last 4 years increasing concern about what we call near-peer competitors, China specifically, but then some of the additional competitors, the rise of or the rise in activity of Russia and the recent conflict in Ukraine has brought additional concern. So the DoD has shifted its focus, rather than maintaining existing systems, we're looking towards, hey, what's needed in the next fight for that near-peer competition. Why that's important for everybody is there's a big shift towards investing in new technology, investing in new capabilities. I'll say from the organization I'm currently in, DCMA, we recently went through a reorganization. We consolidated 3 organizations in the LA area into a single organization. The major reason for that was we needed to, DCMA has been faced with cuts over the last couple of years, so we needed to reorganize to try to increase that tooth to tail ratio. We were too top heavy, and when we took cuts, we were taking cuts from the people that were making the money, if you will. So this reorganization leaned us out at the top level so that we can maintain people where it mattered. And why that matters is it's a reflection of DoD's priorities in terms of eliminating the kind of that middle management, upper management level, and really focusing on investing in new technology. At the same time, we've still got a lot of old systems that still have to be maintained, and so there's opportunities for small businesses to step in, to make that are still needed, but not necessarily supported by those prime manufacturing companies.
Thanks for sharing about your having to lean up and restructure and adjust, because I think that's our everyday life, right? All of us all the time are just constantly having to rewrite our ship and put our resources where we can, do more with less. So to hear the US government and Department of Defense and the Air Force just is doing that same thing, I mean, then it makes us all relatable. You understand what we're going through, and then you're more sensitive to the best use of that money. So thanks for sharing that. I find government officials don't always want to be that open about it, so I appreciate that. Okay, Bill, let's go over to you. Can you answer the same thing?
Okay, sure. First of all, as a partner in this summit, I want to thank everybody here for being and staying tied into this year's summit. This has been a really good turnout. We're going into a 3-day weekend, and you guys have probably a million other places you could be right now. So I just appreciate you being here. I wasn't aware of the CalU study, but when I read it, it didn't surprise me that the Valley is such a leading force, not just in LA, California, but across the entire country. I've had a unique opportunity in my work with DCMA to get out and visit factories across the Valley. Some of them small business, multi-generational businesses that have been passed from grandparent to parent now to sons. I've seen a diverse workforce in those factories of people who really want to get after it and really work hard. Maybe that's part of what makes California great and this community great, is that people come in every day, and it really doesn't matter who you are, what your background is. You're part of the team, and I've seen that firsthand. And we've gotten invites out to companies like Ontic in the back who have said, hey, would you come out and just speak to our workforce for a few minutes? And I said, absolutely, we will, because they are the bread and butter of our entire defense systems. I'm not answering the question yet. What does our agency bring? Colonel Sutter did a pretty good job kind of outlining that and some of the things that I was actually going to say. But one thing I would say from a contract standpoint, that 191 billion seems like a really big number. What we do in the Valley is not a lot of large business. We do have large businesses, but we don't have the big companies. But we do have those companies across Southern California. We have opportunities. That 191 billion a lot of times is in those large companies, large weapon systems. What you guys are doing just brilliantly every day is bringing technology, small piece parts, sometimes services, things to those major weapon systems. And so I would really focus in on that and use DCMA to help you develop that business. Even though we don't have privity of contract on a sub to prime, doesn't mean that we're not going to be available to you if you have questions on becoming AS 9100 certified, if you have questions about contract business systems. Because we see every day in this contracts realm companies that maybe you only do firm fixed price contracts where you don't need an estimating system or accounting system approved by DCAA. Well, sometimes that may change, and you may end up with a contractor that actually, you may end up with a contract. We talked earlier in our sessions about IDCs or IDIQ contracts where a small business gets a $20 million ceiling contract. How do you deal with that? Well, DCMA can help you walk through some of those business systems that you may need to take $1 million or $2 million or $5 million order when your gross annual receipts up to this point have been only $500K. We want that business here. We want you guys to be successful. We want you to be profitable, and we want you to hire folks here in the valley. As I stated earlier, you've got an incredible, diverse workforce. So that's what we bring to the table. We're I guess I hope an agent of change. As I said in my opening remarks, we're here to make you successful, not to be an impediment in doing business with the government. So reach out to us, whatever your function, and let us help you with some of the challenges you may have, because we recognize that you may be the CEO, you may be the contracting officer, and the COO and the manufacturer on the floor, wearing the same hat out there in the factories. But whatever that case may be, we're going to help you grow your business, however that looks.
That's great, Bill. So I heard you say that if our company is like doing contracts right now with about 500,000 range, and I have an opportunity to get a $10 million one, you can actually your services come in and help us figure out how to arm up, staff up, figure out our cash flow around those changes. Is that what you do?
So yes, our contracting function can help you get an approved accounting system so that you can receive progress payments, payments that would allow you to make your supply chain hot. If you guys have a supply chain out there that says, hey, if we lean forward a little bit and order $500,000 of long lead material, we can deliver this to you at a 20% discount. And that makes you more competitive for your government contracts. We want to get you an approved accounting system. We want you to, we can help facilitate the DCAA relationship so that DCAA can come in and do the audits. May require a little bit of investment on your part, but yeah.
Okay, good. Really important. All right, I'm going to switch over and bring Marcella into the conversation. I'm circling back to you, Colonel, so be ready. Your next question, starting with Marcella. We're going to transition the conversation to a global scale right now, and I'd really like to hear from you and the panel about trends in international trade and global competitiveness, and what's your organization at the port doing to address supply chain disruptions. By the way, congratulations, we got the tentative agreement done to keep things moving at the ports, so that's great. But how are you seeing companies adapt to the supply chain disruptions? And then also, if you could speak to trade missions, we get asked or to consider or think about, are they really valuable, useful to our time and money? So how would trade missions maybe figure into us getting more benefit for local businesses? Maricela?
Thank you, Tracy. And I'll start off with the first one. So what has the port been doing to address supply chain issues? And that's something we just didn't do at the start of the pandemic. We've been doing it for a very, very long time. We've been making investments into our port infrastructure. We have a very impressive capital improvement project. So for those contractors out there that are in construction, our 10-year project plan is about $1.2 billion. So we're probably spending about almost $1 million a day in infrastructure improvements at the port. For those of you who don't know, we are a landlord port. We are a city agency under the City of Los Angeles Harbor Department, and we invest in our own infrastructure. So we are not allowed to send money back to the city to spend for municipal projects. We generate our own funds, and we invest those funds right back into our infrastructure. Also, we've been working very closely with our supply chain. Most of you probably are familiar with our executive director, Mr. Gene Soroka. During the pandemic, you can probably see him on the news, on CNN, MSNBC, CBS. He was everywhere. Everybody was interviewing him, wanted to know what is happening with the global supply chain. And it wasn't just one simple issue. There was a lot of bottlenecks and issues at every route of the supply chain. So we were the first point of entry. When you come into the US, your goods come into a port. We ended up becoming a storage yard for a lot of these containers because down the route, on the other end of the route are warehouses and distribution centers. Those distribution centers, mind you, here in Southern California, we have close to 2 billion square feet of warehouse distribution centers. They were full to the brim. Less than 0.02% availability during the supply chain during the pandemic. People were importing goods. At the beginning of the pandemic, we thought we were going to slow down. We thought we were going to have a terrible year. And we were pleasantly surprised because about June through December of 2020, the American consumer started spending. There was an influx of money into the system. People were at home. They were improving their homes. Bathroom remodels, kitchen remodels, backyards were all being invested. So a lot of that supply chain started to move up and move up and move up. People were importing more and more goods during the pandemic. We also invested almost 8 years ago, close to $20 million into a program called the Port Optimizer. It's a data system where we're able to track that container from start to finish. Kind of like when you order your Domino's pizza, you kind of see it where it is in the queue. Well, we invested in a data cloud system so we can effectively track that container throughout the supply chain. So is it on the ship? Is it on a terminal? Is it getting picked up by a truck? Is it on the back of a train? Is it on its way to its distribution center? Or is it already at that store or getting delivered to your home in a box? So there was a lot of infrastructure that was invested on during the time. And as Tracy mentioned, late last night, labor negotiations with PMA management announced a contract deal that had been out of works for 13 months. So now that contract will go to labor for a vote, hopefully in the next coming week or so. So that's a big one. Because of that contract not being signed for 13 months, a lot of our beneficial cargo owners were a little bit concerned about a strike here at the Port of Los Angeles or on the entire West Coast, because that union had California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Hawaii. They control the entire West Coast. So if they shut down, it effectively hurts the supply chain. So a lot of beneficial cargo owners started sending those cargoes to the East Coast and the Gulf. Now, our job now is to ensure that we get that cargo back to the West Coast. And that's something that our executive director is passionately working on to get that cargo to come back. And then to address the last question on trade missions, I have the privilege to work with our diplomatic corps and our global ports around the world, where we are talking to them about supply chain issues, environmental initiatives, and green shipping corridors. That seems to be the new buzzword in the maritime industry in the last 16 months or so. And we are getting commitments from ports around the world to do green shipping corridors. What that means, we're using the greenest, cleanest energy available for our terminal equipment, for our ships, for our locomotives, and our trucks. And we're also asking our global partners on the other side of the globe to do the same. So there are opportunities for those companies who are into green energy, who are doing hydrogen perhaps, or alternative fuels. There is definitely room for you to grow. And I'll turn it back over to you, Tracy.
That was excellent. Thank you. Learned a lot there. Colonel, do you want to contribute on the trade mission or the supply chain? No?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to take it in a little bit different direction. From a DoD perspective, Congress has put in place laws that says you need to buy from DoD sources. And that's both from an economic perspective as well as a security perspective, right? Some of our critical technologies, we want to make sure that those technologies are protected. Two events from a global perspective in the last couple of years that have shaped, I guess, the way DoD is buying. First of all, COVID. We all know, and there's been several references to supply chain. I think COVID was probably one of the most significant events that really gave DoD pause in terms of understanding where are we sourcing our capabilities from. Do we have a particular market that is all coming from overseas, and our domestic infrastructure, industrial base is, all but zero. So it's increased the sensitivity to that. The other piece is, and I referenced it earlier, the rise of the near peer competition, particularly China. We've grown very concerned about sourcing key technology from China. And I'll give you an example you've all heard Within the last couple of years, there's been several Chinese communication companies that have been banned from being a government source of that technology, modems, communications equipment. In a previous job, there's a lot of appetite, a lot of interest right now in small UAS, and I'm talking about even the type of unmanned aerial systems that you can go out to your local big box store and pick up a system for maybe $50, maybe a higher end system for $100. The DoD is, because of that concern of the near peer threat, has put in place restrictions where I, as a DoD component, in the Air Force, if we want to experiment around from a research and development perspective of, how could we swarm these, how could we use these in battle space awareness, I can't go to the big box. I can't buy that Chinese-made component. Guess what? It was really a struggle to find a domestic source that had domestic components, ranging from the communications equipment to the camera systems, you name it, that were domestically sourced. So getting back to the question, while DoD, aside from an FMS, and I'm not going to go into that, foreign military sales, while we're focused on domestic sources, that's an opportunity for y'all, where this is maybe a market that's more sheltered from. You don't have to compete with the mass market, the Chinese, big box store type systems, but there's this niche capability that the DoD needs, and that folks in this audience may be able to fill.
What's a near peer, real quick?
What
does that mean?
So
China seems pretty far away. When you say near peer, I'm thinking, what is that?
So it's a term, and I apologize, it's a term used in DoD circles, and I'll, as comparison, the last decade we've been fighting wars in the Middle East, where immediately we had air dominance, and we could kind of control the battle space. And when we talk about a near peer, we're talking about an adversary that has very similar capabilities that we're not going to be able to walk in on day one and control the fight.
Okay, I learn something new every day. I like to learn things. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit into lightning round with a couple more questions. So I'm coming back to Marty and Bill, so you guys get ready. Both right here, the Valley Economic Alliance and BizFed, we're champions all the time of streamlining, getting rid of red tape, and how it slows the pace of business and private capital getting to work and us adding jobs. So please share specifically, because I know you guys are on it, some ways that your agency is streamlining paperwork and the processes so we can get to this contracting quicker.
So we have a couple things going on. For folks that are building or doing development, we have recently put in called Project Powerhouse. It's a response to Mayor Bass's Executive Director 1 for low-income housing. Under that, we've seen about 190 projects come in since December. About a quarter of those are since the announcement. Others were in the queue, and we've reduced our cycle time by 86%. To get those projects designed, planned, and constructed. And 22 of those projects are already in the ground and up and running, and over 1,000 housing units developed. So we know that we can do it. We know that we can change things. We're right now also working on a broader approach for all businesses, because obviously people say, well, I'm not low-income housing, I want to construct something, where am I in line? And if you waited in line for water and power, you waited in line for a long time. And so we're looking to change that and also change the financial dynamic, whereas right now we've had developers, kind of the first developer pays for all the infrastructure upgrades necessary for their project. We're looking to apportion that, so they only pay the portion due to them, and instead of them being the bank for everybody else, we will be the bank for everybody else. That'll help people who are developing projects immensely. At the same time, we've got programs for people who have existing businesses, programs to retrofit buildings, become more efficient for both energy and water. We have a new program that allow, I think it's at least a couple $1 million in refunds, where we actually will set you up with a consultant on the outside to improve your business, do all sorts of things that'll help you save money, and we'll co-invest in that with you. We had, so we have projects like that, things that we can really help people to save on those sorts of things. The other thing we're working on red tape is we're really working to reduce the red tape on hiring and on contracting, and trying to make that a faster, simpler process, make it a little more transparent. And on the hiring side, we're working with City Hall to try to speed up how fast the city can hire. There's thousands of vacancies in the city of Los Angeles for jobs, and we're trying to make those jobs more accessible for people all over the community, in every community of the city. Excellent.
And from a DCMA standpoint, Colonel Sutter mentioned earlier that we're kind of the flagship for Southern California in combining our workforces together. Part of that is internal, so that we can give back to the taxpayer, a more efficient organization. Externally, what we're trying to do is we're trying to shift our workload across the entire SoCal, so that we can be responsive. So a big part of the reorg is responsiveness to you, the suppliers who need us to help get in the factory for whatever reason, or to help you with other things that would allow you to do business with the government. The second piece is, and it was touched on earlier in our quality discussion, was just how we are trying to go to more of a process versus product review on factory floors. We're trying to be less invasive, trying to stay out of your way and rely on your quality control systems to get products to the government. Some of you are going to probably shake your heads and say, you ain't there yet. Well, it's true, but we're trying to get there, and we've got distinct policy in place that says, hey, if this is low risk, stop looking at this stuff and getting in the way of getting product out the door to the warfighter. So process reviews, we'll go in and look at how you do that, validate your quality control systems, and then you may not see us. That also reduces first article testing requirements. It reduces product line testing, PLT, or production rather. So that doesn't mean that the first article tests go away or the PLT tests go away. It just simply says, hey, if you're doing these things well, then we're going to rely on your systems and not get out there and do individual inspection.
Okay, great. Rashmi, I want to pull you back in, and Maricela too. So I'd like to hear from both of you specifically sort of what you really expect from your contracting partners, if you can give us any specificity. And I want to dovetail it into the fact that we're always pursuing, our prosperous regional economic development. We're focused a lot in the environmental space, as we want to get those imperatives met, and we want to really focus that, now here's the tricky part, on our vulnerable populations. So if you could dig into, I'm going to start with Rashmi, so what you expect from your contractors, focused anywhere, on our climate change and our green energy policies, and then particularly, how do we impact vulnerable communities?
So we have Burns & McDonnell has the fortune of being a prime contractor, but when we started here 100 years back, we started very small. And I want to share that because we understand what that journey it is when you're on your path to share your value to your customers and your community. And I'll also personally say I'm a first-generation immigrant. I'm a woman of minority in a male-dominated engineering and construction field, so I know what it is like to be in rooms and boardrooms and tables where there's nobody else who looks like me, and the journey to be accepted and your voice to be heard. So I share that as a recognition and understanding coming from a place of empathy at looking at our suppliers and our contractors, how we can support them in their journeys as they they deliver value to the projects and the customers in the region. No doubt, California is leading the charge in clean energy goals in the country. It's fantastic. I would commend our governor because I'm sure most of you heard last week the executive order on expediting some of the regulatory and other blocks that will speed up some of the clean energy goals in our great state. But that cannot be done with the resource pool we have currently available in the state. So we need support and leaning on each other to build these projects that are going to be game changers in how we consume energy in the state. So really coming to a partnership approach, I would say both for primes and for suppliers, if you're looking at that relationship with a very much transactional viewpoint, it's a short-term value, it's a short-term success. But looking at really building relationships and relationship with the organizations that you're going to work with to build that long-term partnership to deliver values. Now, a lot is happening in the state of California that is wonderful, but a lot is happening which is creating inequity, including the energy transition in our communities, right? I mean, a lot of low-income groups cannot look at electric vehicles or the infrastructure needed to support that. So our goal as a consultant, as an engineer, a designer, is to work with organizations like the ports and LADWP and other in the region, is how can we support their goals to make it an equitable infrastructure, equitable solution in the region. I will say we have a lot more to do. And certainly I will not be the one to sit here and talk about we have figured it out, because I don't think we have. But I think if we work together and we make sure everybody's voice is heard, I think that solution journey will be faster.
Rashmi, thanks for talking about Governor Newsom and the infrastructure bill package, because this is alive right now this second. So like Luz Rivas, who greeted us on the screen, all of our assembly members, the senators and assembly members throughout our region, whoever you have contact with or you live in their district, right now, today, tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday would be great if you encourage them to get there's 10 bill package to just streamline the permitting, what we were talking about, and modernize so it's clean drinking water, it's some transportation, broadband, there's some semiconductor manufacturing, a lot of really excellent stuff. But if we don't get that done right now, and I think we have till like the 27th of June, we have minutes left, so that it would be really good just to hear from you guys, just to say, get it done. Like, act now, do it. Thank you for bringing that up.
And I love your call for action. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Maricela.
So as a government entity for the City of Los Angeles, there is a program that if you haven't registered with yet, you should. We encourage businesses to register with our contracting authority, so that way when there's a request for proposal, you get an email, you get a notice that says, please, respond if it's under that category. And it's not just for the Port of Los Angeles, it's for the entire city. So when you sign up, you can pick what areas you're interested in doing business with, if it happens to be engineering, if it happens to be green energy, if it happens to be supplying nails or little ridges, or perhaps tires for the fleet vehicle pools. There is an opportunity for everyone to participate in that program. Also, the port also looks at, when we're looking at contracting, who does your firm represent? Are you a big firm, and then who are you bringing in underneath? Are you subcontracting? Are you bringing in those minority-owned and women-owned businesses into the mix so they have an opportunity to also work within those projects? Are you paying a living wage? Is there a labor contract agreement within that contract that you're going to be paying? So those are all items that our board considers when they're going to award a contract.
All right, we are coming up on time. I know we could go on much longer. I think, we talked about, we opened up that we're friends here and we're colleagues and there's this human connection. We're all investing time with each other. All right, Sonia Blake, please come on up. You're going to close this out today? Yeah. I just want to thank this amazing panel. Did you learn a lot? They came from everywhere to spend time with you. Thank you for being open and sharing and teaching us a lot today. And thank you, Valley Economic Alliance and Fred Gaines, for inviting me to come today. It was my privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tracy, and to our whole wonderful, distinguished panel. Each and every one of you has a special role at the Alliance, and we are incredibly appreciative of the ways that our institutions work together. And hopefully this weekend doing some playing together too. So I want to thank all of you for your insights and for your leadership and for your support of the Alliance and for always being there when we call upon you to share what you're doing in the community.